go for Jake, fouled round, and he's got it, and he's up and over the wall. Alec Thomas on the run, Alec on the ball. What a catch, Alec Thomas! Oh, wow! Seawall to strike away, here he comes. Cave, a fly ball to right field, over is Carroll. He's got it, and the Arizona Diamondbacks are headed to the World Series.
Welcome back to the Arizona Snakescast. I am your host, Brennan Green, as always, and today we have a special guest. We have DbacksProspects, also known as Riley, over on X and now on Instagram. Riley, how you doing?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. We've had a lot of stuff happen over the past month or so. Lots of stuff in the minor leagues, a lot of stuff going on in winter ball, lots of interesting moves at the major league level. So we're going to talk about quite a few things, but first thing I want to talk about in kind of your area of expertise, right? The Diamondbacks have a top 30 prospect list, just like every other team does. And it's kind of had some shakeups the past few months with all the moves at the trade deadline that we made. And then more recently, the trade that we made that sent Kyle Backes to Philadelphia. Is there anybody on that list, right? Obviously, people can go out there and look at it and pull names of people that they know, right? They can see Lou James Groover and say, hey, I've seen that name plenty a few times, right? I'm excited about that guy. But is there anybody on that list you think people should pay more attention to?
Yeah, there's a handful of names. The first one is actually number 30, Chung Seong Wong. He's out of Taiwan. They signed him in last year's class. I believe it was pretty late into the year and was only for about $500,000, which is relatively small for these levels. He's particularly notable because in Complex this year and in Visalia this year, he was extremely good. We're talking a 3.56 ERA to a 3.64 FIP. Really good underlying, near 29% K rate to only about a 5 to 6% walk rate. Opponents only hit 199 against him, and it was if you know like swinging strike rate, 17.8%, which is insanely high. One of the more interesting notes on him specifically is the fact that he throws what I can call a split change or a chitter. Kind of using a tennis ball for this, but you basically have to dig it into the back of your hand. And it's been particularly effective for him. It's his bread and butter pitch. It's kind of similar to another Taiwanese prospect that we have, Yuman Lin, and how his changeup works, kind of offsetting his arsenal, allowing him to really mow through batters and get his fastball and curveball to play up.
Yeah, that pitch is. I'm trying it right now. I can't. Like, I actually throw a splitter and this hurts my hand, so I don't know how he's doing that. I can't even get it all the way back there. I got a huge gap here. So,
another name I guess that would be worth noting is Yasel Soler. On paper, he doesn't seem that elite or that good. Overall in a year, you'll see he's about league average, at least for Visalia and most things. I think it's worth noting for about a 2 to 3 month stretch, he had a 289, 387, 530 slash. And the power's real. It's easy 60 grade. It's mostly to all fields. There's a specific game I actually remember where he got jammed and still hit at 108. Multiple batted balls north of 110. He's got real power. His defense is developing as well. He's expected to start in Hillsborough next year, and I do really like him as a prospect. I do think he's like one of the more high upside guys in the system. He's just a really fun name.
yeah, I think if there's one thing that bodes well for Diamondbacks minor leaguers, if it's guys that can hit for pop, the stadiums that they play in, Hillsborough is kind of a shorter porch. But Amarillo and Reno both really, really hitter-friendly ballparks, and that really builds confidence for a lot of players that are coming up through there. So, like Soler being one of them. Drew Jones started to kind of find his stroke last year, finally, after coming off that shoulder injury. And then one player that we just got, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because his name's a little peculiar. So I gotta work through it.
I'm gonna mess this. I'm gonna mess this up as well. So
Avery Owusu Asieta.
I think it's. The way I've heard people pronounce it is Avery Owusu Asedu.
Okay, Asedu. Okay.
Asedu was interesting, and I've been looking over this the past 24 hours or so, particularly because he does not fit the D-backs development style. There's only really one player that's close to him in terms of one position, two high three-handedness, and four really how he plays, and that's AJ Vukovic. And that was more so a depth signing in the draft. He was not particularly, and it's nothing against AJ, rather that he was more of a guy that they were using to backfill the system rather than really dream on.
Yeah.
What makes Avery pretty interesting to me is the fact that he's got plus run times. He's 6'4", 230 pounds, and he's able to just bolt out of the box. He's a pretty good defender in center. Left and right seem to be a better fit. He's likely to be above average there. The power is where I'm particularly interested in. His max exit velocity was around 113, which is quite high. He showed really good power metrics in low A. The concern is, and something I think the Diamondbacks will work with him on, is the swing angle. One thing that kind of happened to him is that he would not really optimize his exit velocities, not to make it too dorky, but he wasn't necessarily getting the ball in the air at the rate you would want it to. There was a lot of line drives, but for the kind of power that he has, he could not optimize it. So with that, it led to him not really being able to fully realize his potential. He's expected to start the year in Hillsborough, but I would not be shocked if he started in Amarillo. I would prefer he started in Amarillo, though, just because I think for guys who are more power-centric, Hillsborough is not a fun park.
Yeah.
There's only one guy, actually two, that I remember in any recent history being able to succeed there, which are Christian Robinson and Ivan Melendez. And those two are freaks of nature. Not saying Avery isn't one, but even other guys have struggled. They're much higher level prospects, much higher graded prospects. Just it's not a park where power works.
Yeah, I mean, just even like I said, looking at this last year for Hillsborough, a very pitcher-heavy team. Obviously, they faltered down the stretch quite a bit. They had a lot of injuries. You know, Demetrio Crisantis had that terrible shoulder injury that kind of pushed him out for the rest of the year. They kind of lost a lot of bats that way for people moving up to Amarillo. But, you know, you look at their pitching staff, it is a pitcher-friendly park. I mean, Daniel Egan was just unreal for them. Very, very happy to see what he's been doing. Like to poke jokes at him from time to time. But yeah, I think you're right. It's very hard for a high A Diamondbacks prospect to really succeed on a power level unless you're a freak of nature. And I'm curious to see how Hillsborough's new ballpark, they just built a new ballpark. They modeled it after Amarillo's ballpark. I'm curious to see if that plays into anything regarding their hitting streak, because Amarillo has some short porches.
Oh yeah. What makes Amarillo particularly interesting is how tight the corners are. Bar 352 and left, the grass field and right. That could play a factor. I think one of the issues that players have with Hillsborough is that if you do not pull the ball, you are going to struggle to get it out. You have to absolutely pummel the ball to get it anywhere close to out.
Yeah,
you're not pulling it down the line.
There's a lot of strong winds that blow into Hillsborough from the outfield. Got to talk to Seth Hoyland, who's their radio announcer there, and obviously wears a lot of multitudes of hats for them, as you do and when you work for a minor league baseball team. But yeah, he just was saying if you're not pulling that ball just kind of like to your effect, you're not really hitting it anywhere other than the outfield grass.
I will say there's another name on this list that I've been particularly interested in. One that I don't think has gotten that much love, which is Ashton Izzy. He was included in the Josh Naylor trade. He was a particularly interesting name to me because of something Baseball America came out with. He was near the top end of stuff plus amongst starters and actually overall pitchers in minor league baseball throughout last year. He was above names like I believe Troy Melton was one of them. There's other high-end names he was above as well. And the arsenal is really strong. His fastball has a nice ride and run. He has a really, really strong curveball that I like. It kind of plays it as like a slider, but he kind of manipulate it. The changeup really developed well. It looked fantastic by stuff model standards. Control was normally an issue for him, not as much in Hillsborough. So with him being that way, I'm kind of interested to see what he does in Amarillo. But I do think he's a quite an intriguing arm, especially because he's already up to 97, 98. He can easily play as a number 3 starter for the Diamondbacks. Just a really, really fun name to look at.
Yeah, I think you look at, like we just got done talking about the hitters, right? Going through each of the
Yeah.
ballparks and getting that confidence level as they move up, right? It's hard for pitchers to maintain that. The same thing. I look at it like a guy like Spencer Geesting, right, who was doing pretty well at the beginning of the year, went up to Reno and struggled pretty heavily. It's a very, very hard ballpark to pitch in. And that's why, generally speaking, when we look at these prospects, right, I'm not too worried about ERA once they're in Reno. You know, the stuff plus the kind of those saber metrics I think are a little bit more important when evaluating our pitchers. But Ashton Izzy being a big stuff plus guy, being a high strikeout guy, I don't think we'll have a problem. And you can kind of chime in here, but I think one really great example of someone that really excelled in our minor leagues with that kind of attitude or that kind of stuff was Brandon Pfaadt. And that guy struck out so many people, and that's the reason why he just combed through so many batters because the outs that he were getting weren't in the air; they were in the box.
Yeah, I will say that the guys who are more pitchability types tend to have more success at the higher levels. A really good example of this is Spencer Geesting, what he was able to do in Double A. That is I guess, a decent example of what you can do if you do have pitchability along with some level of stuff. Some of the issues I've heard about Amarillo, and this comes from a buddy of mine, Austin Hartsfield, from the Amarillo side of things. He noted that there's a general feeling and a general fear among pitchers in ballparks like Amarillo and like Reno, feeling as if any fly ball can get out, which is true. You do not, I mean, if you hit it over 85 miles an hour, get a decent angle on it, and you pull it in Amarillo or Reno, you've got a shot. It has a real chance to go. And because of that, from what I've heard, there's been a lack of confidence factor on those levels. And I do think that not only having a strong mindset, being able to pitch around and having strong stuff are key for those levels. It's really a test to see who can survive with the D-backs. All your pitches are going to have their movements doled down. All the batters are going to be basically, well, with high A, you're going from mostly college kids to Double A, where you're seeing guys who are on the cusp of MLB or former MLB guys. It's a ginormous shift. And for guys who are able to survive that, that says a lot.
Yeah. Also, shout out Austin. Austin's a great guy. If you haven't had the chance to follow him, he does a lot of good work, not only just for our minor league team in Amarillo, but the community in Amarillo as well. He does a lot of other sports if you're interested in that or you live in that area. Okay, so top 30 prospects, right? We've kind of combed through that. A big thing for the Diamondbacks and a big theme, especially looking at last year, is depth, right? We've run into a lot of injury issues at the major league level. We've seen guys come up and do well. We've seen guys come up and do poorly. Who are you looking at, right? And I'm speaking more pitcher sense for now. We have a 5-man rotation that is possibly already set. I don't know if they're going to make another move for a starting pitcher, right? You have Merrill Kelly, Brandon Pfaadt, Ryan Nelson, Eduardo Rodriguez, and Michael Soroka, who's slotting in as a starter right now. Who do you think out of AAA's immediate depth is the most likely person to take over a spot in spring and maybe push Soroka to a long relief role?
If there was one name to do that, it'd be Cole Drake. But if I were to play the upside name and a guy who can come into spring and really cement himself and put his name out there, it's Mitch Bratt. Cole Drake has an overall solid arsenal. Nothing's necessarily a super flashy pitch. Rather, he's got kind of everything being like a 50 to 55 grade. His pitchability is what really gets him going. He can really dot the zone. He can get his fastball up, down, and around. Can really play off his changeup and curveball. Just a really fun pitcher, and it's how he's been able to, for the most part, survive in Reno and survive at the Double A level with Frisco. One note with Drake is that he did end the season, I think, on a shoulder injury. I believe that will be resolved for this coming year. With Bratt, it's the stuff does not pop off the page. It's the command that does. His fastball comes at a really weird angle. The upper body, I would say, moves like a trick screwball. Um, but he's only going 89 to 92 on it, but it plays really well up, and he can really play slider and changeup off of it. My thing for him is if he can add velocity, if this looks more like maybe not 89, 92, but maybe 94, 96, which I know is a giant jump,
Yeah.
but that changes him from just being a arm that you're just hoping has command to an arm that could really fight in a rotation. It's a guy that you could trust taking every 5 days, going out there and really being able to overpower people.
I think you could probably comp that. I don't know if you followed Ryan Nelson much, like when he first came up, right? But like I think he added probably what 3 or 4 miles per hour to his fastball in the past season, and just I think it was the best, if I'm not mistaken, the best like fastball in the entire league by stuff, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe it was.
Yeah. So if you can add just a couple more miles per hour and you got control like that, you're gonna pitch in the big leagues for a long time.
I think there is another pitcher worth noting, and it's on the bullpen side of things, and that's Hayden Dirk.
Yeah, that's perfect that you
He,
said that. I have that circled
yeah,
on my piece of paper right here.
because Hayden Dirk dominated in
Yeah,
Hillsboro. It was, I think it was north of 42 or 43% on the strikeout rate.
yeah.
Fastball's constantly above 96, has some nice ride. Um, Slider, curveball, I believe. I'm trying to remember if it's slider or curve. Sorry,
You're
breaking
good.
pitch is just really strong. Also, I think has been tinkering with a changeup, which if that really fills into his arsenal, that could really push him forward. But I mean, it's triple digits, and when he's on, he's on. I don't think that there's another guy in the system, at least right now, that can kind of pitch up like him. My closest comp to what I saw with him in Amarillo, just from what I've seen in games, was Justin Martinez-esque, like what he used to do in AAA Reno,
Yeah.
where it would just be guys having no chance. Like once it was 0-2, and you just knew a slider was coming, it was just over. It was, I mean, some of the swings I saw were pathetic.
Yeah, that's putting it lightly, I feel like. If you haven't familiarized yourself with Hayden Dirk, right? Just to kind of give people a little into it as far as how he made progress last year. Started off in Hillsboro. And I think it wasn't until like the summer is when he made the jump to Amarillo and then the jump to Reno almost immediately. So very, very fast tracked. Um, and for good reason. I mean, he has great stuff. I think, like I said, I have on my piece of paper. You can see it, right? Maybe if this is right there, that's Dirk right there. Probably was blurry, but somebody I definitely circled. He's something that has intrigued me quite a bit in the minor league level, and something I definitely have an eye on, and it's something everybody should have an eye on.
If there was one other bullpen name I would just list off quickly, it's Jardine Chalice. Currently in Double A, he finished off the year in Arizona Fall League. He was an incredibly interesting arm going into the year, particularly because he was done as a starter. The numbers weren't great, at least the overlying numbers. He did put a good fifth for some reason, but as a bullpen arm, he's 98 to 100 from a sidearm angle, works more as a sinker, has this really disgusting slider that it I've seen more than one batter fall over on. And then he's currently tinkering with a changeup-esque splitter that he did use in the fall league, and it did produce some pretty good numbers. If there's a guy that would be like oh, this guy just came for a bullpen, who is this guy? It would be Chalice. Chalice would be a guy that I would feel as if maybe isn't mentioned out of spring, but maybe come June or July, all of a sudden you see him in the pen and he's putting in innings.
Yeah, so a lot of people obviously this year were very upset with how things turned out on the major league level, right? A lot of injuries. The team ended up tanking pretty hard, had some clubhouse issues, ended up falling very, very short of expectations. Um, but one thing, obviously, people were upset of the trades that we made, and a lot of people don't understand kind of what you do with players when you have a team that is not going to make the playoffs, right? And when you sell high on players that are doing well, like Eugenio Suarez, Josh Naylor, you get loads of prospects back. And I think the Diamondbacks addressed a very big need that they've had over the past few years in pitching depth. And I think we're seeing that with Drake, with Bratt, right, being some MLB ready guys, Izzy kind of coming through the ranks, probably MLB ready, and a year or two, right? And I'm excited for him. This is probably the most promising I have seen our farm system since we had Paul Goldschmidt blowing through Mobile in 2010.
Um, I think a good thought exercise for those listening and for yourself is try and imagine the current depth of the farm system without Brett, Drake, Izzy, and then try and imagine the 40 man without Brandon Garcia, Juan Burgos, Andrew Hoffman, and then try and imagine this offseason and what you'd have to deal with. And that's even if you made the playoffs and everything worked out. It's, in a way, selling kind of save the team because I do not know how this offseason would go without these names.
I agree 100%.
I will note that the development side of things has also changed in the system. One thing they've added this offseason is Jeremy Blake. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it right. He comes from the Pirates org, and he was primarily working on the pitching end of things, or pretty much all on the pitching end of things. He was part of the process in terms of development and part of the acquisition process. According to Nick Picoro, he's going to end up doing that with the Diamondbacks. He was the guy who got his hands on like Mike Burrows, Bubba Chandler, and really helped to build the Pirates farm system to be an extremely strong pitching development group. But there are still some things development-wise the team does. For one, now they're going to be emphasizing more velocity. A lot of the minor league pitchers are going to probably be pushed to get higher in velocity. I would expect this to be names of guys like Spencer Geesting and Landon Sims, guys who probably need the extra tick or two to really play up at the major league level. Durability has been a focus forever, but it's clear that whatever they're doing now is not working. That's going to be a change. In terms of what they look for, and once you start seeing it, you can't look away from it. It's cutters. They love themselves a fastball that cuts. High arm slots are really common in the system. Kyle Ament is one of those names. Trying to think of the other one. God, I believe Brian Curley has a bit of cut on his fastball as well. And they still targeted throughout the draft. Luke Dotson, who was one of their higher end signings, also cuts his fastball. It's something they keep going back to. Another thing is really hard changeups. They love those. Christian Mena has one of the hardest ones in AAA. And they have rumored interest in Pete Fairbanks.
Yeah. Pete Fairbanks is crazy.
And has an extremely fast changeup as well. I will say development-wise, they are kind of weird in that they really hyper-focus on certain things, especially on the batting side. You'll pick it up on it immediately. It's almost all hit over power guys. And yes, there's the height part as well. So, I mean, the last guy they drafted, non-pitcher, who was not, I wouldn't call short, but not below 6 foot, I think was Pavin Smith. So, and that was 2017.
I love Pavin Smith.
Don't we all?
Yeah. Some people don't like him. I actually dig Pavin. I think he made some good strokes this year, to be honest with you. Finally, hopefully, going to live up to that first rounder name.
But with the front office and the way it is, and with the season and the way it is, at least what we're heading towards in 2026, I do think it's kind of fair to start to look at the roster and rumor mill. And I do want to kind of begin talking about that, at least in terms of what players I think will be made available. 2 names in specific, and honestly, maybe even 3. Tommy Troy and Lou James Groover, I think, have real chances of being moved, especially if it gets them a good reliever.
I agree.
Or maybe it gets them a position player. Just because both are at AAA, both are likely to be blocked to begin the year. And because of that, I think that they're going to resort to going to move them. It just, in my mind, makes sense for them to move either of those 2 names purely because they're close enough to MLB that I could see a team being more welcome to getting them. And also because of the fact that I think their tools could play at an MLB level right now. Another name, and I don't love mentioning this. If they want to play up in the market, Waldschmidt's going to come up.
Yeah.
A team, if you're going to go and get Joe Ryan, Cole Reagans, or some big name, maybe if you want to add to your rotation, it's going to require Waldschmidt. It's going to require Cunningham. It's going to require Caldwell. It's going to hurt.
Yep.
And I think those guys are also notable as well. Hazen Allwood said that everyone's available this offseason unless your name's Geraldo Perdomo, Corbin Carroll, or Ryan Nelson. And because of that, I think it's worth noting that any of the prospects that we're talking about are not untouchable.
Yeah, when you have a prospect that is absolutely raking, so like look at Waldschmidt, right? This is, I guess, technically year one and a half, whatever you want to call it, right? Um, Looked fantastic. I find it very similar to what we did with Davison De Los Santos last year, when we went out and we got AJ Puck for him, who was a premier arm on the market, who has been great for us, unfortunately, barring the season-ending injury. But whenever you have a prospect that's absolutely mashing, the first thing that comes to my mind is what can you get out of him, right? Is it somebody that is going to be blocked long term that you should move? We talked about Lou James Groover, who just won a batting title in the minor leagues this year, right? Somebody that's probably going to be blocked for a little bit. You have Lawler, you have Troy, you have Alexander, right? Perdomo. You have basically that side locked down. So I think moving somebody as high profile of a minor leaguer that is Ryan Waldschmidt would make sense for the Diamondbacks if they want to win right now.
The kind of tricky part about it, though, is that Waldschmidt is kind of the one outfielder that's probably, or the one position player that I think is going to have space in 26, unless they go out and get their hands on some or two big named outfielders. He's likely going to have a spot because this past season he showed he can play center field. So with that, he can play center field or left field. And let's just say, and I guess this is kind of leading to the next thing. Let's say they traded Ketel Marte for Peyton Tolley, Jaron Duran, and some extra pieces. Even then, there's a decent chance that Waldschmidt's going to have a spot ready to go. Maybe left field or center field's taken up by Blaze or Lawler. He'll still have a reasonable chance at getting it.
Yeah.
I would assume that neither Blaze nor Lawler are the offensive profile or that high of a profile that they would be like, nope, or don't have the contracts. They're like, nope, we can't move off of him. And for Ketel, I do feel like, and I don't want to act like I want to trade him, but at this point, with how long he's been out there and how much it's been talked about, I feel like they're forced to trade him. I would not want to be in that clubhouse in spring training because, I mean, Ketel knows about this. That's not going to be fun. And you're going to have to, I mean, and it's probably going to sour his relationship with the front office as well because they're doing, I mean, they're saying they're not shopping him, but they're all but saying, hey, somebody, please give us enough for Ketel.
Yeah.
Please give us some pitching and we'll take it. And because of that, it, in a way, it could also set up the system. But at the same time, if this doesn't happen, it could make for a very toxic clubhouse situation. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, if you understand,
I don't.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't. So this whole past season, right, when stuff started coming out about, Cattell taking the time off and all this stuff, right, and the recurring injuries, it's kind of hard, I feel like, for us to really, really know what's going on there, but you can kind of think about how that atmosphere is, right? You have this guy that's an all-star caliber player for, at this point, 110 to 120 games a year, right? And kind of disappears when the club needs him the most. And I love Ketel. He's obviously the best second baseman in baseball. But you do have to come to a decision, right? It's this back and forth, right? Either you need, as the general manager, come out and say, not trading this guy, like get off my back, or saying, hey, he is available, right? And then you do trade him. The prospects we would get would be tremendous, which I love that upside to it. I think if you decide to keep Ketel Marte, then in my eyes, I would rather open up the second base spot for somebody that is up and coming, like Tommy Troy or Jordan Lawler, or keeping Tim Tawa there, somebody like that can fill in that second base role, right? And shifting Ketel Marte to the designated hitter only for the time being, just to limit the injuries. I would rather have Ketel Marte play 150 games a year at designated hitter than 100 games a year at second base from an injury standpoint.
Yeah. Ketel's whole situation is really weird because he's simultaneously a guy that the Diamondbacks need to keep. Like trying to imagine the current Diamondbacks offense without Ketel Marte, and just understanding that really you're leaning heavily on Corbin Carroll, Geraldo Perdomo, and Gabriel Moreno to
Which, by the
do
way, all
anything.
people that have been hurt.
Yeah, and especially Moreno. I
Yeah.
mean, you're basically leaning on two hitters to carry that lineup. And are we really going to be betting on either one of prospects or two? Are we going to be betting on Blaze, who had serious whiff issues? Lawler, who could not hit sliders at the major league level? Tim Towell, who had his hitting struggles as well?
No.
Alec Thomas and Jake McCarthy, who both also had hitting struggles. Also with ADC. I mean, if you are moving Cattell, you've got to be ready to not only get, and honestly, it's what makes a Cattell trade so weird. You also need position players back. Not only are you going to need like I said, the Connelly early, Peyton Tolley, Ryan Pepio, those kinds of names, the guy to kind of slot into your rotation and put it to the next level. You also need a guy who can actually hit,
Yeah.
like a Jaron Duran, or even like a Jonathan Aranda from Braves. I mean, unless you expect, and I hate to say it, unless you expect Tyler Locklear to suddenly become a 30 home run bat, or you really expect Blaze to have a 4 WAR season, or expect Lawler to really break out, expect all those to happen, I don't view that. Personally, I don't think that's all going to happen. I just don't see it working out.
Yeah, it's kind of this. They either need to, and John Boy Media said this a month or so ago, and I didn't really agree with it because I kind of knew that the direction the Diamondbacks were wanting to compete this year. But they said that they put them in a category of choose your direction, right? Like what are you doing this offseason? Where are we going? Like who are you leaning on? The Diamondbacks are in this kind of in this gray area right now, right? Especially with this whole Ketel Marte thing looming. Like, are we really buying into everything and going for it? Are we kind of leaning on all of our prospects to kind of step up, right? Are we leaning on a 4 WAR season for Blaze Alexander? Are we leaning on Tyler Locklear to figure it out, or are we buying people? Are we going out and are we saying, hey, we're getting Pete Fairbanks. Hey, we're looking at trading for Joe Ryan. What's the Diamondbacks MO right now? And I can't really tell you, to be honest with you. I know they want to compete, but like how are they going to compete?
I think this was made even more complicated, and I do think this is worth noting, and that's Alex Bregman, all the Alex Bregman rumors.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, apparently, according to Ken Rosenthal, they might be able to fit them both in. But in my mind, it seems more likely that if you're going to get your hands on Alex Bregman, which I do think they have a real chance at, um, they're going to have to move Cattell. And with that, I'm trying to imagine how a lineup could look without Cattell, but maybe you trade for a piece and you get Bregman. I'm thinking like maybe you get a guy like Jonathan Aranda, who had a really strong year last year. You have him at first base. Maybe second base is Troy or Lawler, shortstop Perdomo, third Bregman, and that's functional. I'm pretty sure we would all like that.
Yeah.
The thing with Bregman though is right now we can't lean on him signing. Apparently the Diamondbacks do have a better deal out for him than the Red Sox do. The Cubs and Blue Jays are listed as fits, but the Cubs, one, already have a third baseman and don't like spending. And two, the Blue Jays, if they try and get Bichette and or Tucker and Bregman, their payroll is going to be north of 40 to $50 million more than the Dodgers.
Yeah, which is not
which,
happening.
which won't happen.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I do think that the Diamondbacks have a real chance at Bregman, but that only happens if Catel's moved.
Yeah, it's definitely very, very interesting. I think the Bregman deal, I think the Diamondbacks put one more year out than the Red Sox. I think the Red Sox made like a 5 year thing, and the Diamondbacks put like a 6 year contract out there. So in my eyes, right, if they're offering that kind of money, right, it obviously seems like they want to compete next year. The only question mark I think is Ketel Marte, and we don't really know. I think that's the piece that's holding everything up, right? It's either a yes or a no. And we need to figure that out soon because the market's going to start going up and up and up and up.
The way that Mike Hazen's talking about it is also really weird. He went from being like, "Oh, we're not moving to tell, we're just listening," to kind of just being like, "Oh, yeah, actually, we're fielding calls, we're doing this, we're doing that." It reads more like he's getting close to a deal, and this is just me just
Yeah,
trying to read tea leaves here.
infer a little bit.
But but does not read like a guy who's like, oh man, I'm not even going to move Cattell. No way. Mm-mm. Unless they pay that price, no way. I'm not doing that. It does not feel like that.
Yeah, I agree. The narrative in the past few months has definitely shifted. It's been definitely like we're not moving him to, hey, people have called us, but that doesn't mean, we're moving him. It just means I'm doing my job by taking the call. And now it's like, hey, it's kind of a possibility that this could happen. I think it was the Athletic that put the odds at 50-50 that he gets moved, right? Which is pretty high. So yeah, curious to see what happens there. I think, and you and I kind of had a little conversation before the podcast that I think a big move will be made soon, and I think you think a big move will be made soon as well.
I just have this gut feeling.
Yeah,
It just feels like they've made a lot of smaller moves, but it just feels like we're getting close to winter or getting close to not winter. We're already in winter.
we
We're
are in
getting
winter.
close to the end. We're
Unless you
getting
live in
close to the
Arizona. Unless you live in Arizona, then we're in like fall part two.
yeah.
Yeah,
If we're to say like by New Year's, a lot of these deals have to start being made. Hazen's got to make a decision soon because otherwise he's only got a little bit of maybe about a month to figure out. Because by the end of January, he should be pretty much set. Um, he needs to be able to figure out two relievers, probably, whether that's via trade or free agency. He's going to need multiple position players, likely going to need an outfielder and at least one infielder. And then you're probably going to want another starter. And he's
yeah,
probably going to need to address other issues. I think maybe there could be a utility guy added, just other little names, maybe a fourth outfielder, stuff like that. He's got to be able to address that all within a month and hope that he can field all those calls and fit it in. So, in my mind, the moves have to start being made now,
and I
especially with like how the markets are looking.
and I think it starts with Ketel Marte figuring out that's a yes or no because you really don't know where those gaps that you need to fill are at until that decision is made. So I think to be honest with you, that is kind of the thing that's holding everything up right now is whether or not we are trading this guy.
If in a way though, like everything centers around Cattell, and I also think that it's a bit of a more clear picture now of Cattell being traded. Because if you're a team that needs second base now, you go to two people or you have to pay up $30 million for 6 or 7 years to Bo Bichette. You're
Yeah,
either going for Brendan Donovan or you're going for Cattell Marte. Donovan, I believe, only has 2 years of control. Cattell gives you six. Donovan is about a 750 OPS bat with good defense. Cattell is going to be north of 850, if not in the 900s, being a solid enough second baseman and definitely being an all-star at the position.
yeah, without a doubt. But
So as a team, I can understand in a way why you're willing to pay the Pied Piper and throw all your prospects at Cattell. I can understand why a team would want to do that.
and I think very intriguing with talks about the Rays lately. They seem to be one of those teams that kind of float around the playoffs and are always one or two pieces away from either being in it or being at that next level, right? 2020 was kind of a different season for them, but they seem to be one of those teams that just is just always missing one piece. And Cattell makes sense for them. And I think some of their guys make sense for us. So I think if there's a likely chance we go anywhere, it's probably with Tampa Bay. One
Okay.
thing you did mention, you kind of talked about needing some relievers, and one guy I wanted to kind of touch on really quick is something that did start for us for a little bit that is now having success as a reliever in winter ball, and that's Gilbert Diaz. What are your thoughts on Gilbert, and do you think that he has a legitimate shot at being in this Diamondbacks bullpen come next season?
I do believe that he has a real shot in the bullpen. Apparently, his velocity came back. He was only sitting 94 to 96 for a couple outings in Reno before going down. He's back up to 98 plus, pushing over 100. Mechanics have been cleaned up as well. The slider and curve are as disgusting as ever. He's looking like a basically a new pitcher. He
Yeah,
barely looks like his old self. And I do think that his stuff plays really well into a bullpen role. It reminds me a little bit of like Kevin Ginkel when he's good, like Kevin Ginkel when he's feeling good. And if not at that level, even more than that. He's truly a changed pitcher since joining Winter League, and the stats show it. He was a fantastic closer. I believe it was for Caribas, and he was just disgusting.
Yeah, I really, so 2024 is when we saw Gilbert for the first time. Did pretty well for us, right? As you'd expect for a pitcher to debut, right? Had his good moments, had his bad moments. Was a pretty good fill-in for all the injuries that we were having, right? And then kind of a fall from grace this year. You mentioned, fastball speed was kind of way down, had some stuff he needed to clean up. Went down to AAA Reno, then eventually ended up in AA Amarillo. But reinventing himself as a reliever is something obviously the Diamondbacks I feel like need more than starting pitching now, especially with the way that the prospects are loaded up in AAA. But very interested to see what he does. And then, of course, coming off a back surgery, Christian Montes de Oca should be back this coming year as well. Curious to see how he does. Had some good flashes, but not a huge sample size. So, good friend of mine, a really nice guy, and I really do hope that he gets back healthy and gets back in that bullpen as well because I'm curious to see what he'd be able to do for us.
Um, this is a little bit off topic with Deoka, but from what I understand, he's gone along in recovery well and is already throwing again. He's been doing really well with recovery. And for the kind of back issue that he had, this isn't just like a career ender, or could have been a career ender. It could have been a life altering injury. And he's thankfully been able to mostly recover. He should be ready for spring training, if not just a little bit after. So it's a really nice story to see a guy that was once a concern going into this offseason, like, hey, is this guy going to be healthy? Are we going to see him again? And apparently he'll be back to 26.
Yeah, like I said, once again, all around stand-up guy. It very, very awesome to talk to. Very, very cool story, and very, very thankful that obviously he did not have, like you said, not only a career-altering but a life-altering back injury. He's up and thrown again, which is great. And that's kind of the theme of this next coming year, right? Reinforcements on the way as people trickle in from injury, be it guys like Christian Montes de Oca or Corbin Burns or AJ Puck, right? Lots of guys coming back. Blake Walston's another one that you will see next year. Don't know if he'll break through majors or be in rehab for a little longer, but all in all, lots of good stuff heading our way from a prospect perspective. From a major league perspective, we did make one big signing so far, and something everybody wanted to see happen. Merrill Kelly came back on a 2-year, $40 million deal with an option for 2028. It's a vested option, so if he gets to 170 innings pitched, which is, I think, in my opinion, the best vesting option you can ask for a pitcher of his age. He gets another year on the table. He's 37 years old, wants to finish his career here, and from a sport track perspective, right, his market value was 1 year, 16 million. We got him on a 20 million AAV deal, so I think pretty good for us there. 12 and 9 last year, 3.54 ERA, 167 K, so 1.11 WHIP. He's been probably the most consistent pitcher in baseball, other than, and dare I say it, Zach Wheeler, as far as consistency goes. I mean, he's constantly putting up good numbers. Granted, he's old, but he definitely anchors our rotation. I'm excited to see him. Are you excited as I am?
Yeah. Um, I think with Merrill Kelly, it wasn't necessarily was a sign that the Diamondbacks needed to make, but once they were out and kind of lost the mid rotation market with guys like Cody Ponce and others, it became necessary. And thankfully, he's back. He took a smaller deal. I believe the Padres offered 3 for 50 or something close to that. And with Merrill Kelly, I do think he's going to be helpful with the younger guys on the staff. And funny enough, he's probably going to be in spring training talking to and teaching the guys that he got traded for. There's a decent chance. One of those, there is going to be Drake and Brett in Major League spring training. They're on the 40 man. In addition, we're also probably going to see David Hageman get a shot, and I would assume that he gets some form of spring training reps as well. So having a guy like Merrill there, at least to teach a lot of the younger starters kind of how to be more pitchable, kind of how to adjust yourself to the majors, how to work against tougher competition, even if you don't think your stuff is playing up the best, I think that will really help.
Yeah, what a deal to be able to bring a guy what we traded to Texas and got 3 of their prospects and brought him back within a couple months is the ultimate swindling, if you will. I think so. Very excited to see Merrill back. I know everybody else is as well. Lots of good stuff on the way. I want to close this out by asking you a question. I want one bold prediction from you, one player you think will make an impact from the minor leagues to the major leagues, and one bold prediction from a major league perspective. So one player you think is going to really shine, and then what do you think the Diamondbacks are going to do this coming year?
Wow. If I were to say major league, um, I think it would be Lawler. I think that if he's really able to, he's an X factor, honestly, because at his best, I don't think it's hard to say that he, or it's not too far off to say he could be better than Geraldo Perdomo was last year. Like if he's there, he's able to be consistent. He can get to the ball better. He's able to handle sliders. Plays maybe a more consistent defense. I don't think it's far off to say that Lawler can truly be an X factor for the team. On a prospect side, if there was a name I would go with, it would have to be, and this is farther down the system, but I think Brian Curley, who I brought up before, they're going to start him out as a starter. There's a chance that he becomes a reliever. He's a guy I could see flying up through the system fast. It's a 20 plus IVB fastball at 100. It's a
Yeah.
disgusting slider. He's got the bullpen mentality. I'm sure if you look up his name, you'll find a clip of him like sticking his tongue out at a team at the opposing team before striking a guy out.
Yeah.
Like he's a guy that while I do think they're going to try and develop him as a starter, if they move him to the bullpen, he's going to fly through the system. He might have like the Philip Abner, Hayden Dirk, Kyle Ament kind of rise that we've seen over the past couple of years.
Yeah, it is. If you haven't had the chance to watch Brian Curley's highlights, it's not only funny but very daunting as a hitter. He carves people up very, very easily, and to think of him as a starter is interesting. Very, I know the Diamondbacks with Dre Jameson brought him up as a starter. Obviously, unfortunately, it didn't work out because they bounced him back and forth between the bullpen and starting, and ultimately led to a Tommy John surgery. But obviously, don't wish that upon anybody. But if Brian Curley is carving people up like that, I don't think it'll be too long before we see him up in the show. Riley, it's
Yeah,
been fun. I appreciate you showing up. I think we're going to close it with that. You have any final remarks?
not really. I would just say to keep track of the farm system if you can. Just watch it. They're fun games. Honestly, sometimes they're kind of stupid. It's just fun baseball. It's I guess it's a more raw form of baseball. It's not like everyone there is a perfect player. You see players from all forms and backgrounds, all at different levels of development, at least on a much wider scale than MLB. It's a really fun experience. And especially if you get to enjoy those communities, they're really fun to be around, especially Hillsborough and Amarillo. I can't say enough about how those people have treated me. It's just a fantastic experience.
Yeah, everybody, if you haven't had the chance to make trips out to there, Hillsborough is building a brand new ballpark. It'll be open for their new season coming up. Great people there. Just kind of like what Riley was saying. They've been nothing but nice to me as well. Had the chance to visit them, had the chance to visit Amarillo, and had the chance to visit Reno this past season. All are very great ballparks. Missed Visalia. I'm going to try to make it out this year, but just great people, great experience all around. If you get the chance, please get some tickets. Go for a weekend. Go see them. Some fun promos too. So, but I think that's going to do it for this episode. So, Riley, I thank you so much for coming out and talking farm with everybody, kind of getting us learned up, if you will. And I hope to have you back on soon.
Thank you so much.
All right. See you, buddy.
See ya.